And I know we've been into a lot of your classrooms before, so a lot of you are aware of our presentation. So, I'm not going to go over our presentation, but I am going to go over more of the why it is important for students to learn about organ donation. And I used to be one of our school presenters. And so I remember those mornings, usually a 7:30 class, students come in, they see you have a guest speaker, and somebody says, "Oh, are we going to be tested on this?" And the teacher says, "No, I just want you to listen." And you see heads go down for, that much needed nap. And I understand, I'm not a morning person. I need a nap about that time in the morning too. So I get it, but I knew, right off that I was going to have to work really hard to get the students' attention and to help them understand, why this is important. And one of the real, obvious reasons that you schedule this is because it's one of those questions on the driver's license application. And most of the students, by the time we go in, most if not all, have their learner's permit. So they've answered this question once, but they will have that opportunity to answer the question again when they go to get their actual license. And so this is just something that they need to know for that reason, if no other. But it's also one of those things, I kind of look back to when I was first asked about driver's, putting yes on my driver's license. And, the lady behind the counter just said, well, it means if you die, they can use your organs for someone else. So that was the education I got. And for some students, that may be enough. They may say, oh, okay, whatever. For me, I said yes. I was like, I guess if I'm dead, I don't need them anyway. But it wasn't something that I was comfortable answering without a little bit more information. And so, that's one reason it's important. Another reason it's important is because this isn't an old person thing. Now, sometimes it's like, only old people need transplants. We're young. Why do we have to worry about this? And this information is as of a couple of weeks ago. There were 797 people in Utah on the transplant waiting list. I checked this morning and it was actually 785. So the good news is that it's gone down a little bit. Hopefully those are people who had transplants and not ones who passed away waiting. But for people age 17 and under, it was 25 when I looked the other day. Sorry. And it is still 25. And you may think, oh, 25 people, that's not that many, that's not that big of a deal. But keep in mind, those 25 kids, those 25 teenagers are people. They're somebody's daughter, they're somebody's son. You look at kind of breaking down, 11 of them are waiting for a kidney. Almost everyone who's on a waiting list waiting for a kidney is on dialysis. So you have these kids who are either going to a dialysis center 3 times a week and being hooked up to a machine for at least 4 hours at a time, or they're hooked up to a machine every single night. Now, they shouldn't have to be worried about that. They should be worried about, their prom date, or if there's even going to be a prom this year, or soccer practice, or, whatever. But those are the things kids should be worried about, not going to dialysis and am I going to be able to get a transplant. It's a tough thing to go through for adults. I can only imagine how much harder that is for kids. So then you come to, if we don't teach the kids, how are they going to know? And many of you have met Jerry Osman. She does a lot of our school presentations, and she shares her story about her son, Sebastian. And here's a picture of Sebastian. Sebastian was one of those kids in class who I get the impression that, he was not always the most attentive student in class, but the day that our presenter came and talked about organ donation, he actually was. He listened, he was engaged. He came home that night and talked to Jerry, and he made it very clear to her that he was going to put yes on his driver's license. Jerry was not a registered donor at that point. And I'm sure, most of us, if our 16-year-old says, I want to be an organ donor, we're going to think, okay, whatever, it's not, it's not something we're going to have to worry about. But Sebastian, unfortunately, about 2 weeks after that, was involved in an auto pedestrian accident outside his high school. He was in a coma for about a week. And eventually it became very clear that he was not going to make it. And Jerry was presented with that decision about being an organ donor, or about allowing him to be an organ donor. She is almost positive she would have said no had she not had that conversation with Sebastian. But because he had talked to her, she said yes. And again, I know a lot of you have seen the video that Fox did with Jerry, so I'm not going to show the whole video, but I'm going to show just a clip of kind of some of what Jerry had to say about that decision. Very awesome. Wasn't sure what I was going to do. Okay, I was afraid that was going to happen. I see that there's no sound. I know you share your computer sound when you start, but shoot. I know when I set up a presentation, I know how to share my computer sound. When I'm coming in from somebody else setting it up, I'm not sure how to do that. So, sorry, and I actually had 2 videos that I was going to show, but it's.
Colton, can you walk her through how to turn the volume on her screen?
Hey Dixie, can you hear me?
Yeah, she can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
so if you want to share your sound, just click share screen again, like restart your sharing.
Okay.
And then you should see on the, share sound. Yep.
Okay, sorry,
No
I usually know how to do that, and then of course, because I'm doing a presentation, I'm going, I don't know how to do this. Okay, let's see if we can start this from the beginning. And like I say, it's a short clip, so.
Mary Osman lost her 16-year-old son, Sebastian. Before he died, he talked to his mom about organ donation.
Sebastian was always kind of like, why wouldn't you recycle your organs? Why wouldn't you give them to somebody?
If Sebastian hadn't let his feelings known, she may have said no to donation.
For me, when I lost him, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I wasn't sure how life was going to go on. He was my only child. That was a tremendous loss for me. And to be able to gain this whole extended family through Carol has given my life purpose.
Okay. So you can see from Jerry's standpoint, organ donation.
Mary Osman lost her 16. Mary Osman lost her 6.
You can see from Jerry's standpoint that, making the decision to donate organs, it was a difficult one, but it was one that has blessed her life since that point. Another reason we come into the classrooms is to clear up misconceptions. There's a lot of them out there. And I'll just kind of quickly try and look at chat. If some of you will put some of the things, have you heard misconceptions either from your students or outside? What are some of the things that you've heard about organ donation? Okay. So I don't want to spend, too much time just waiting, but I did have, somebody say that they want to try and keep you alive if you're a donor. And that is one of the biggest misconceptions we hear. That one, and that people think, that they have other health conditions that prevent them from being a donor. So we do a lot of we call it a gift of hope, but we've done a lot of series with Fox 13. And a few years ago, we were filming a couple telling their story of donating their son's organs. And the dad brought up that was something he believed, when he was growing up. And so they went ahead and filmed him and then used it in another story they were doing with a neurologist. But I'm going to show again that just a quick clip of that dad talking about his fear that doctors wouldn't try and save his life.
But Brett told me when he was a teen, he and his siblings said no to being organ donors.
Because it was half in jest and half not. We talked about being in an accident on the road and having the paramedics come and see that, that we could save him, but he's marked as an organ donor. So maybe we don't save him and we save a bunch of other lives with his. We joked about it, but at the same time, it was a question.
So, even though he said, they kind of joked about it in jest, it was still a question. And I think there's a lot of questions out there that if we're not able to go out and give presentations, talk to your students, they may have questions that they don't know where to get those answers. So again, one of those reasons why, we feel like it's important to be able to give our presentations. And then this, of course, is our why. We share a lot of stories in our presentations. So I'm going to share a quick one here. This is Alex. Alex was born with what's called hypoplastic left heart syndrome, which basically means the left side of his heart did not develop. And so he kind of jokes that he was born with half a heart. He had several surgeries through the first years of his life, helping him reach a point, where he could be older, and before he reached a point where he had to have a heart transplant. Alex was able to get a heart transplant when he was, I think he was 7, almost 8. He is now in junior high. But as you talk to him, he says when he was young, it was tough. He wanted to be outside playing with kids his age, but he just didn't have the energy to do that. He played a lot of video games. So after his heart transplant, he's been making up for lost time. He loves to ride his bike. He loves to swim. He is in junior high right now, but he joined his high school's mountain bike team. And I had a chance to talk to him last September with going back to school and people trying to make decisions if this was the right decision for them. I wanted to find out what Alex and his family decided. And it was a decision they took very seriously. But they said, as they were trying to make that decision, Alex said, I got this heart transplant so that I could live my life. And they kind of looked at that reasoning and went, yeah, we'll do all the safety precautions. We'll make sure he's got a mask. We'll make sure that there's hand sanitizing taking place. We'll make sure his teacher is aware of his health conditions, that he's high risk. But he did go back to school live and he's doing great. So I'm going to experiment with you guys for a minute. Hopefully this works better than the sound from my video. But we're kind of toying with trying to put more technology in our presentation. So I'm going to do a quick little quiz with Mentimeter, if it works. And so I'm going to ask you to, I don't know if you can see underneath the Zoom things, but if you could go to Mentimeter, or not Menti, MENTI.com and type in code 5606703, and then just type in 2 words that describe donation. It's kind of a fun little thing to kind of get an idea what people think when they think about organ and tissue donation.
Dixie, can you put the link and the code in the chat box?
Yes. Maybe. There we go. Did I lose that as I was getting the chat box open? Can you guys still see?
We have Menti.com, code number 5606703.
Okay. Can you see the screen with Mentimeter on it, or is that not? I probably have to share. I probably have to do a separate share, don't I?
You'll have to share the
Do a new
Mentimeter
share.
screen.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is fun. I see some of the answers that you guys are putting in there. All right. And thank you for humoring me on that. I think, it's kind of fun to see what people think when we talk about organ donation and what some of the more common or popular answers are. And then a lot of what, the ones that maybe aren't the big ones, but things that other people are thinking. It's like, oh yeah, that too. So let me come back to the PowerPoint. And I know, this last school year has been crazy for everyone. So I wanted to just kind of throw some numbers up here. As teachers, I know you have been on the front lines of, do we go back to school? Do we not go back to school? Do we do virtual? We've got cases in the school. We're going to go to virtual for 2 weeks. I know it's been really hard on you guys, and just kind of wanted to show kind of the impact it's had on our presentations. In 2019, we were able to give just over 1,800 presentations to 55,000 students. In 2020, and we're grateful that we're giving presentations, don't get me wrong, but we gave 851 presentations to about 23,500 students. So a lot less, but again, we were just very grateful that we were able to get into schools. So if anyone is wondering, we are giving our presentations live. We are happy to go into the classrooms. My team is excited. They love to be in front of the students. And if all possible, that's our preference. But there's a silver lining to the things that we've learned over this past year. And one of those is we've learned to give virtual presentations. If you would have asked me a year and a half ago how to do Zoom, I would have said, what's Zoom? I had no idea. So we do give virtual presentations if we're not able to go in a classroom live. And for those teachers who are in rural areas that we haven't been able to go to in the past, if it works for you to do a virtual presentation, we would love to be able to come to your classes. We've also put videos and lesson materials online, because I've also talked to people who are doing online classes, and the online classes are not meeting, at a specific time. So we can't just arrange a time that, hey, we're going to get our presentation, but there's materials there. So let me see if I can do a quick screen share again and show a little bit of our resources and what we have. We've got a couple of recorded presentations. A lot of you are familiar with Karen Hyde. So she recorded a presentation. It's about 25 minutes long. I also have a presenter that presents in Southern Idaho named Diane, and her presentation is also available. It's about 30 minutes long. We have several videos. There's a link to our YouTube channel, and then I've kind of given some suggestions of ones that you might want to share with your students. And this is on yesutah.org. And then there's a research assignment. If they click on this, it'll pop up with a Word document that explains how to get onto the United Network for Organ Sharing website and just find information about, how many people are waiting, age groups, ethnicity, gender. They can find all kinds of information like that. There's also a Jeopardy game, and then, other information. So if you get a chance, browse through there. There's all kinds of information that you can find there that you can either use for your online classes or to supplement if we've come live or virtually and you want to supplement. There's also that type of information. And then finally, we are also looking at, maybe now is the time to start using more technology in the classroom, maybe having students look up things on their phones or if they have devices for their students. So that is something that we'll be asking maybe as we start to schedule for this new school year, if your students have devices, if the school has devices for your students, and if we're able to use those in our presentations. And then finally, one person can make a huge difference when they make a decision to donate organs. And you look at organ donation, it's kind of one of those double-edged swords. None of us want to lose a loved one, but sometimes it happens. And I found as I talked to donor families that decision to donate organs actually blessed their family. It was a loss that couldn't be avoided, but they are realizing that, hey, this saved someone's life. It impacted the recipients and everyone the recipients knew. And then just to wrap up, I found this quote by Shai Reshef. It says that when you educate one person, you can change a life. When you educate many, you can change the world. As teachers, you guys are changing the world every day, and we appreciate when you let us in our classrooms so that we can just be a little bit a part of that. So are there any questions, concerns? I've got my email address there also if anybody wants to schedule a presentation or get in touch with me.
I think everybody just finally figured out how to use their chat feature. We were just sending it to panelists and not to all the attendees. So hopefully you have more information in there so far.
Yeah, I can see there's quite a few things in the chat. I just
one of the questions is, how far in advance do you need to schedule, and do you just schedule with you calling you or emailing you?
You can call or email. If you can give us, 3 or 4 weeks, we appreciate that. If you need someone right away, quite often I'll have teachers that find out that they are going to need a sub later that week, and we've been able to get a presenter there. Sometimes that doesn't work, sometimes our whole team's busy, but if you need someone right away, we're more than happy to try and make it work. But yes, ideally we'd like at least a few weeks notice.
So far, not really questions, just about the students going home and talking to their parents about it, how amazing your presentation is, and it starts a conversation, and you and your staff are fabulous and have great information, and it's an outstanding resource to have you come to their classrooms.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I say my team loves to go in the classrooms. We appreciate you allowing us to be in your classrooms and sharing our information.